as they say in the United States. Hello. I'm Robbie Allwell, director of some of the greatest documentaries I've ever made. I used to think literature was a lost art form. At least that's until I came across this.
It all started with an article titled Behind the Words of Warren Elliot, in which journalist Jackson Willis raved about an original new author out of Saskatchewan. To be honest, there were a lot of words in this article, and mostly I just skimmed it. But a photo of Warren Elliot's debut novel, The Dirty Sailor, did catch my attention. I quickly picked up a copy and was even surprised to find that Entertainment Weekly had reviewed the novel, scoring it a B+. Not too shabby.
Warren Elliot has remained virtually unknown within the literary community of Regina, his hometown. His work resides somewhere between brilliant and purely absurd, yet within his dialogue lurks a subtle truth and optimism about human nature, a truth I realized that no one was reading. After acquiring a handful of Elliot's publications, though, I realized that there was an author's fuse waiting to be lit by exposure. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, may I present my next greatest documentary of the year, Elliot.
Excuse me, sir, have you ever heard of author Warren Elliot before?
No, I haven't heard of him, but in general, I'm a very big supporter of the alphabet.
Have you ever heard of Warren Elliot before?
Oh, no. No.
Well, I'll take that as a no.
Warren Elliot. He's not the one who wrote on the eclogic faces of the snowbird tectonics. No, that's not him. I don't think I've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of that name, I think. He wrote that poem, right? What was it? Sexy Legs. Yeah.
Elliot did, in fact, write Sexy Legs. It was a provocative poem about lust and desire and was published in 2003 in a collaborative poetry book called Sensuality in Language. It's considered to be one of Warren Elliot's first critical successes.
Yeah, no, I bought that book. I copied it. I copied Sexy Legs for my poetry class and was expelled because of it. Oh, that's awesome.
You're a disgrace to a generation, sir.
Hi, Mom!
I made my way over to the residence of Warren Elliot, where he started by showing me his work area.
I like to type. I like to keep things uncluttered, so when I get an idea, I can just pop it out right away.
There's not really much to this place, is there?
No, not really.
Oh, you got your typewriter here.
No. Watch it.
Jesus Christ.
It's a little low in here.
You could have warned me. Oh. I bet some great stories have been written here, though.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? I'll take care of this.
What are you
Come
doing?
in here. Come and get a shot of this. Look at me. I'm typing.
Excuse me, what are you doing? Well, where I come from, you just don't start playing with an artist's tool like that.
It doesn't.
Please.
It doesn't even seem to.
Please, move.
Not sure it even works properly, though.
It doesn't. But that doesn't matter. It's a symbol.
Well, what's the symbol?
That I can't write. Oh.
It's okay. This is awkward.
Well, first, just let me say, what an honor it is to be here with you today. From what I've read so far, your work is very original, and you can write.
Thank you. You'd be surprised how unappreciative people can be about originality. I'm just a little nervous.
It's perfectly all right. Everyone gets a little nervous in front of the camera.
I'm just under a lot of pressure right now with my writing. As they say, 50% of writing is 75% emotions.
Well, I'm a filmmaker, as it's quite obvious, but I'm sure you've seen all my work, and it's never been easy for me either.
Actually, I didn't really know who you were before you contacted me. I'm glad that my writing has connected with you, though.
Well, I'm glad that my filmmaking has connected with you.
I've always found that viewers can participate fairly passively with film or television compared to the work it takes to get a book into their hands.
Well, that is one opinion, be it somewhat abstract, but I worked very hard in my career to inspire minds.
It's apples and oranges, I guess.
I prefer apples. But let's move on. I guess it's not really about me, is it? But it's not even documentaries that are harming today's youth. It's HBO and women's television, right?
I was actually just trying to describe a general struggle as a writer. People nowadays can't name as many authors as they can film stars.
Like Robbie Allwell.
No, I wasn't trying to use you as an example.
Oh, no, I don't mind.
Was there a question you had?
Yes. What's your motivation?
Well, I guess it would go as far back as my childhood. I was an avid reader even at a young age. My mom insisted upon it. I was told that I was a crier, but I'd like to think that I was just overly sensitive and in tune with my emotional connection to the world. I had quite the book collection, but ordinary stories with oversized pictures did nothing for me. I think it was my grandmother who discovered that reading the dictionary aloud would instantly calm me down. That story makes me believe that I was born to be a writer. In grade 1, when we were putting sentences together, I had to take a note home because I modified the sentence, "The cat ran fast," into "The feline, starved by undisclosed cruelties, escaped quickly on its tender paws." It's shameful how some brilliance can be mistaken for mental retardation. One of my defining moments of my childhood was when I received a copy of Tolstoy's War and Peace for my 7th birthday. I read it cover to cover in 2 months. It was a complicated read, and I didn't understand it. I felt each page was mocking my sanity. But I had to finish it because I feared defeat, especially defeat by a book. In short, the motivation for my writing came from the need to rectify the literary abuse I endured as a child.
That is a heartbreaking tale.
No child should ever have to read War and Peace. In fact, I don't think anyone should ever have to read it, ever. The length of that book is sickening, and I don't feel out of line saying that the printing of that book could possibly be a huge contributing factor to the depletion of the world's forests.
After doing this interview, I realized that trees are actually important, almost documentary worthy. So in the meantime, please visit the Environment Canada website to see how you can reduce your dependence on wood products. Seriously. So I guess I can understand your distrust in mainstream literature based on the writing of yours that I've read, but I think viewers would still like to know more about the choices or decisions you've made as a writer. You've attempted 3 times now to become part of the National Pen Writers Guild, or the NPWG. But why bother with such a high-profile organization when you're more of an indoor type?
The market for talent and art through subtle and emotional and real writing is so small. Not everyone has to like my writing, but there should be an outlet for it. I don't believe in formulaic writing.
I don't believe in ghosts.
The NPWG is selected because they believe in the power of words. I can respect those elitist bastards for that. I still want to be a part of the guild because they can give me a respectable reputation. I mean, sure, they've rejected me, but On some level, I feel as if they'll accept me because they don't understand what I'm trying to say.
Sometimes that's the smartest approach there is.
I'll do anything for my dream except sacrifice the integrity of my work. So here I am.
That right there, that was the opinion I expected to find from Warren Elliot. It's the passion that made me fall for your writing, and the conviction that will keep me supporting you, even when you're found to have some brain infection.
As I became more familiar with Warren Elliot as a person, I knew I needed to hear what the NPWG really thought of Elliot's work. So, I hopped on an enchanting technical device known as an airplane and headed to Ottawa to see what the Guild was all about. Mr. Avery, first, I just have to ask, how old are you?
I had a feeling you'd ask. Many people mistake me for a man in his 20s, but I actually have a growth defect that drastically slows the aging process.
I don't see it.
I'm actually 47.
Seems about right.
I don't know what you'd like me to tell you about Warren Elliot that we haven't said already in his rejection letters.
But I've seen the copies of the letters that you sent to Elliot, and they all said exactly the same thing.
Yeah, we just use a template.
Well, okay, let's see. Let's get to the heart of the issue then. Why has Warren Elliot not been accepted into the National Pen Writers Guild?
It's a complex issue. There are many varying opinions on the matter, most of which I'm not at liberty to divulge to you. The NPWG is known for our very high standards that we have, but they do tend to give us a bit of an elitist reputation. We don't discriminate, though. We just prefer to exclude certain types of people. But I myself just recently approved the submissions of 20 authors. That's a record for the Guild.
So, how many people usually apply?
Oh, it would be difficult to say.
Can't you just count the number of submissions?
It's really not that easy. There are varying factors.
Well, maybe just throw out a rough number then.
Maybe 1,000
Per week?
No, per month. I don't. It's a slippery slope. I don't want to make it sound worse than it actually is. We're not the only firm that gets submissions. You see, we get a lot of stuff forwarded to us from provincial guilds and clubs. It's really inexcusable, the kinds of shit that we get. And we get junk mail just like anyone else. Well, except for this. This isn't junk mail. This is about healthy eating.
Have you read each of Warren Elliot's submissions?
I've been in this job now for 2 years. Before me, it was Joseph Sandsberg. He was a grumpy bastard. What I mean is he was a troubled person. He died right here in the building. A library shelf fell on him and crushed him. I really only thought that kind of thing happened in the thriller novels. And then here it happens right under this roof. Some say karma catches up to you. I think he got exactly what was coming to him, which worked out well for me, because I was next in line for the submissions job. He read Warren's first work, and I read the other two, and I'll read whatever Elliot submits to me this year, pending a library shelf doesn't fall on me.
Mr. Avery, if you could ask all these authors who submit their work one question, what would it be?
How many good novels do we really need?
could write something more violent. Sometimes people like that more than artsy stuff. You know, like that film writer Quentin, Toronto, Ontario.
Mom, I said I'm fine. I'm working on my next submission for the Guild.
I've read your submissions. Don't take that tone with me.
I don't have a tone. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying that if you expand your appeal a bit more, something you know,
Don't even say formulaic.
you can put your clever spin on something, is all I'm saying, dear. I just don't want you to lose your dream.
I'm not selling out, Mom. That's losing my dream. When I get into the Guild, things are going to take off. I know it.
What's this submission story about, anyways?
It's a tale of whimsy that takes place in the mind of an old man who discovers he's dying. The medication he's on causes him to hallucinate, and he retraces his most passionate and sexual memories as though he is actually there again. He sees all of his former lovers in his mind and explores the last time he slept with them. It's about our most primal urges and the significance of physical love in our lives.
Warren, that sounds beautiful. And I don't want you to take offense, but it doesn't sound like your usual fare.
And it was inspired by Grandpa. Mom?
Grandpa was a sex addict. It was a very serious problem. You know that. He slept with a 34-year-old woman in his 70s, for heaven's sake.
Well, that's the personal connection. The story is called Grandpa's Lusty Mind.
I take it back. It sounds just like you. You're talented, my boy, but I don't know that I'll ever understand your inspirations. I still don't understand the deal with you and that Guild. They're a bunch of fat cats, if you ask me. My offer still stands, though. If you want me to write them and tell them how talented you are, I will.
Mom, please not this again. I think the documentary guys are recording this.
I'm not ashamed. It's a tough world we live in, and sometimes we have to do what we can to get a step up.
I know. I just want to make it on my terms and without my mom embarrassing me.
Well, your father and I are here for you, even if you sell out just a little bit, to make some money.
I won't, Mom.
Well, we won't judge you. Maybe just a wee little bit of selling out. We'd be happy.
Thanks. It's good we understand each other. What's that?
I think your dad is vacuuming the driveway again.
Okay, Mom. I'll call you back later.
He's definitely scaring the neighbors. I should go stop him. So best of luck on your story, Warren. Hugs and kisses, and don't forget what I said.
I won't, Mom. Bye.
Bye, dear.
The submissions I've read were The Librarian's Pet and Agonizing Pain in Black and White. Joseph Sandsberg read The Dirty Sailor, if I'm not mistaken. All three were rejected by the Guild.
I've read each of Warren Elliot's submissions, and although I may not be a literary scholar, as a prolific documentary filmmaker, I'd argue that Elliot's work is very original, brilliantly cohesive, and generally quite inspired. What was your take?
Okay, it's not that Elliot is a bad person. I can see that there's a lot of passion there, but we're looking for stories and authors that we can market to a certain level of sophistication within the Guild. Warren is racy. That twisted seduction in Librarian's Pet is not the sort of reputation we're after.
No, I don't buy that. You're saying that image is more important than vision?
Not at all. Vision and talent are first and foremost, but we're trying to remain prestigious and fresh. It's a difficult balance. A lot of the older guys here, they would probably like to keep things more respectable, while a lot of the younger people would probably push for work similar to that of Elliot's. Unfortunately, they're not the ones calling the shots.
Well, what about you, Mr. Avery? You're the submissions director. Don't you feel the need to give credit to deserving authors?
This isn't about me. I'm merely an extension of the Guild. I just critique to the guidelines, or guild lines as we sometimes call them.
I just don't see the humor, sir. You justify your rejections based on imaginary opinions when you're the one with the work in your hands.
I don't justify it.
And you owe your job to more authors than you'll ever know.
What do you mean?
The shelf. The shelf that crushed Joseph Sandsberg that led to you getting this job was likely filled with literature spanning decades. You of all people should understand that the power of literature is greater in numbers. If that shelf had only had your approvals on it, I doubt Mr. Sandsberg would have even been bruised.
Never thought of it that way. Warren Elliot is just so weird.
Weird? Perhaps. But unfocused? Certainly not. In 2004, Warren Elliot made his first submission to the NPWG with The Dirty Sailor. Along with the submission, he included a note which read, "Dear Sir or Madam, will you read my book? It took me years to write, will you take a look? It's based on a novel by a man named Lear, and I need a job, so I want to be a paperback writer. Paperback writer Warren Elliot." Joseph Sandsberg, the submissions director at the time, later forwarded a message about that so-called letter, which read, "It's a dirty story of a dirty man, and his clinging wife doesn't understand. His son is working for the Daily Mail. It's a steady job, but he wants to be a paperback writer. Paperback writer Joseph Sandsberg." Despite his rejections, if one thing can be said about Elliot, it's that he's certainly determined.
Sexy Legs was the first big thing that ever happened to me. Getting that poem published felt so good. It felt as if I was really doing what I was meant to do. But it didn't compare to the feeling I got when I finally completed The Dirty Sailor.
It was that rewarding, was it?
It didn't just seem good. It seemed like a natural extension of myself. Something I could share with the readers and say, this is a part of me.
Well, you did submit this work to more than just the NPWG. The book was eventually published, and as we see there, which is how I came to read it. The reviews for it, however, were quite varied.
I don't think criticism works.
I don't think communism works.
I write for people who want to experience the world in a new way. I put a different spin on things. I simplify and complicate and chew up ideas, and then I spit them out on a page. Is it right? I don't know. But if you compare your work to throwing up on a piece of paper, it's not always going to be pretty, is it?
I guess not. The Dirty Sailor, in a grand sense, was about a living environment, it was about, in a grand sense, I guess, about a living environment that consumes all beauty. I took the sailor as a metaphor for hope.
Very good. I'm impressed. Not too many people take kindly to my imagery.
Well, I have a review here from the Chapter 1 Book Club, and here's what they had to say. The Dirty Sailor is perhaps the worst story I've ever come across. Your novel reads much like a grade 1 textbook illustrating marine life and biology as, quote, stinky fish and fat dirty things with blowholes, end quote. The word dirty appears nearly 1,000 times in a story of only 22,000 words. What were you thinking?
Well, that's typical. But they clearly didn't understand the meaning of using such stark vocabulary. The world is in fact dirty.
What about your next submissions, The Librarian's Pet and Agonizing Pain in Black and White? They were also harshly criticized. At what point do you admit that maybe there's some truth in what these people are saying?
Never! They either get it or they don't. The work is what it is. My determination has to pay off eventually. Doesn't it?
Well, it was about 2 years ago. But he used to be in here all the time. Yeah, he sure was. He was always in here and looking, I was so cute. And I just wanted to kind of beat him up and... Oh, well, the thing is, he was writing about something. But I never did get to see anything. Well, I asked him several times, actually. Because I was very interested. But he just sort of kept to himself. You know, he once said that I inspired a character for him. And then he just sort of stopped coming around. I never did get to see it.
I'm sorry, but did you ever hear about Librarian's Pet?
No. Did Warren actually write a love tale about our steamy gazes in the library?
Well, I'm not sure it was exactly about you, but it was about a librarian who kidnaps a man and then forces him to write a love story about the two of them.
Well, that sounds just like Stephen King's Misery. That's my all-time favorite book.
Oh my god. Yeah, I bet it is.
Have you talked to Warren lately? You know, he hasn't responded to any of my phone calls or returned any of my emails, and, well, I'm beginning to get concerned for his safety.
Elliot's third submission was by far one of the most avant-garde pieces I'd ever read. Agonizing pain in black and white was undeniably painful to read. The structure was chaotic, the plot was elusive, and quite frankly, I thought he was insulting the national pen through code.
Yeah, it was. I was going through a rough time, and out of unabashed anger and stress, I just sat down and started writing a story about my disgust towards Charles Avery and the NPWG in general. Of course, I masked my intent in confusing literary wit, but I wasn't too surprised when I received the rejection letter for that one. In fact, my favorite line was,
Their realm was fraught with inadequacy, each analyst compensating for their lack by punishing those who had the rest. A bunch of egotistical, dim-witted, oblivious fools who had no view of greatness because it hadn't slapped them in the face yet.
I surprise myself sometimes.
When I first decided to document Warren Elliot, there was no telling the impression he would make, or the creative fuel that I'd see as he constructed his fourth, and perhaps final submission. He didn't admit it at the time, but a discussion with Warren's mother said it all.
Oh yeah, he's broke. Are you offering a job?
As Elliot's career has really just begun, he has accomplished, or at the very least, tried to accomplish, more than many authors in their early 20s. From his humble beginnings to an infamous submissions desk, he has written about life in a refreshingly truthful and unique manner that is still desperately searching for that hungry audience. With Submission 4, Elliot has used inspiration from his family and fueled it with the crass, unapologetic tone of his previous works. This time, the intent is perfectly clear: to write the best story ever in the history of best stories ever. As I knew Elliot was hurrying to finish his submission, I had just a few more questions for Mr. Avery.
It's not that anyone denies Elliot's capability. Creativity was never the issue. But there's bureaucracy in this place, just like in any other national firm.
What is your writing history, Mr. Avery?
I was never quite as determined as Mr. Elliot. He's got a long career of writing ahead of him. I made it into the guild back in 1992. I haven't produced any major work since then.
Is there perhaps bitterness at work here?
Certainly not.
Well, what's held you back?
Myself, I suppose. But God knows I've used my allergy to ragweed as an easy excuse.
Well, sir, I feel the need to remind you that you really are in a position of power here. Your approval can make or break a career. It can keep someone in the dark or give them necessary exposure. I can't tell you what to do, but I hope you keep an open mind when reading future submissions.
Well, I'll certainly try.
Well, my work here is done at the National Pen Writers Guild. It's back to Regina.
What kind of writing do you like?
Well, there's immense population that I like.
I would like to read more, but I once picked up a book and actually contracted a virus from a paper cut.
What do you think the importance of literature in today's world is?
None, Barry. Mainly because All the great books have been made into movies. Like some of my favorites literatural movies are like what's Valentine, Page Master with Macaulay Culkin, my favorite. Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen.
Really, I like writings, the classics.
Who's the more environmental kind of non-good people here, okay? It is the people that make books, not films. Because guess what? Films are made onto DVDs, and the only paper used is the ones that wrap the outsides of the covers, okay?
A plot, you can have that in there. That's good.
So after this interview, would you consider ever reading a book by Warren Elliot?
Well, if it is anything like the work of the famous geologist Elliot Hawkins, you bet I would.
What's left to say, really? Elliot polished off Grandpa's lusty mind as expected in record time, put it in an envelope, and mailed it off to Ottawa. Fast forward a few weeks, and here's the Guild again. And Mr. Avery again, who in the shooting of this would not tell me anything about the process or his decision, nor would he do anything other than pretend to read Elliot's submission. Once a wise ass, always a wise ass, I like to say. I'm assuming the story circled the Guild a few times before Mr. Avery put his stamp on it. But if this documentary were worth making, there'd have to be some good news at the end of all of this. Because I'm Robbie Allwell, and I like to change lives. On January 20th, a letter from the Guild reached Elliot, a letter like no other he'd ever received. It said, "On behalf of the National Pen Writers Guild, it is with our utmost admiration that we extend to you, in regard to your story Grandpa's Lusty Mind, a full membership into the Guild and pending rewards and benefits herein. A thrilling success. It was signed by Charles Avery, an approval I'd like to take the credit for. But I won't, because it's not the Allwell way." Elliot was officially inducted into the National Pen on February 3rd, 2007, and this is the photo that now hangs of him in the prestigious hallways. In the following months, Elliot's book was fast-tracked and was published in mid-March. Grandpa's Lusty Mind, which opened to strong sales and positive reviews, has renewed the reputation of the Guild and pulled a young writer into the literary spotlight. Although, I'd argue that was my doing. Needless to say, my work here is done.